People usually want to know what triggers a HIPAA violation and how much is the fine, but enforcement isn't that simple. HIPAA has many different methods of enforcement. Paying a fine comes at the end of the road. Congress delegated HIPAA enforcement to the Department of Health and Human Services. The agency is called HHS for short. HHS delegated HIPAA enforcement to the Office for Civil Rights, OCR for short. OCR is one of many different divisions at HHS. OCR enforcement rules reside in subparts C, D, and E of the general rules. The first principle for compliance is cooperation. OCR may provide technical assistance. The OCR's mantra is to seek voluntary compliance. Enforcement activity usually starts when someone files a complaint. OCR must investigate cases of willful neglect. It has discretion to investigate lesser complaints. OCR reviews pertinent policies and procedures and relevant circumstances. OCR will describe acts and omissions that gave rise to the complaint. The covered entity must cooperate and turn over records and reports. When the investigation is complete, OCR decides if there was non-compliance or whether there was no violation. OCR often uses informal means to resolve complaints. If the matter is not resolved by informal means, the entity may submit additional evidence within 30 days. If OCR determines a civil penalty should be imposed, the money penalty is calculated according to formulas and factors listed in subpart D. If a penalty is proposed, OCR must send a formal notice. The entity can pay the penalty or request a hearing before an administrative law judge. If the entity decides to appeal the ALJ's decision, they can go to the HHS Appeals Board. The HITECH Act provides a new enforcement tool called periodic audits. The pilot phase of periodic audits was already completed. Phase 2 audits are currently being delayed. HITECH also gives authority for state AGs to sue and recover money for their state. Most states have trained their AGs to prosecute cases. Now we'll examine HIPAA enforcement in the town of Single Peak. Single Peak is a friendly place where everybody knows everybody else's business. The Pruitt Medical Building sits on the edge of the park in the Old Town District. Every day, the plaza is bustling with activity. Priscilla and her husband Hudson recently hired Dr. Kramer, a newly licensed chiropractor. Dr. Kramer doesn't have very many patients yet, so he continues to work part-time as a school teacher. The Pruitts also have a biller named Belle, and she just opened the mail and found a letter from the Office of Civil Rights. Someone had filed a complaint with OCR.
Oh no. Where's Dr. Kramer? Kramer, do you know anything about this complaint?
Oh yes, I remember the patient. She's a 15-year-old with fibromyalgia. I gave her some chiropractic adjustments, and you prescribed her pain medications.
We're accused of wrongfully disclosing prescription information. Our patient says her reputation has been ruined. I can't believe anyone in our office could be responsible for this.
Maybe you shouldn't have hired Dee and Fran. Anyway, teach them how to use the paper shredder.
I hope so, because we can't have paper records blowing out of the dumpster.
The letter says possible willful neglect? What does that mean?
Willful neglect means conscious, intentional failure or reckless indifference. Do you know if Dee and Fran use social media?
Are you kidding? They're in high school. Did you know Dee's mother is the librarian over there? Maybe she could investigate the girl's reputation.
Or maybe Dee's father could help. Do you know her father, Officer Oliver?
Can a police officer enforce HIPAA?
Well, on second thought, probably not. Besides, he's not part of our workforce. I'll make an appointment to see Attorney Ann.
Later that day, Hudson walked over to Ann's office.
Hello, Hudson. Let's review that complaint letter. OCR has a website that explains how complaints are investigated. The investigator collects information from documents and witnesses. Would you like me to call the investigator on your behalf?
Yes. Could you do that?
Hello? This is Investigator Ito. Are you representing Dr. Hudson?
Yes. I reviewed the complaint. Do you provide technical assistance?
Yes, we do. Maybe we should do a site inspection.
A few days later, Investigator Ito came to the Pruitt's office. He interviewed Dr. Hudson, and he reviewed their policies and procedures. He visited the complainant's school, and he spoke to the principal. Investigator Ito couldn't find any HIPAA violations, but then he said,
Oh, one more thing. Before I go, I should inspect the trash disposal area.
Investigator Ito walked around the building and he opened the garbage bins and he found medical records exposed to public view.
Oh, I can't imagine how that got in there. I told the janitors to shred all the paper.
What company did you hire? We could help them comply with HIPAA voluntarily.
Well, we didn't actually hire a company. There's a couple of girls that come over after school.
I think we need a corrective action plan.
A corrective action plan?
Yes, I'll help you write it.
Investigator Ito provided an outline for the CAP, and the Pruitts submitted the CAP to the Office of Civil Rights. OCR has many different enforcement tools. High-tech increased the amount of civil penalties that could be imposed. Technical assistance is the most common method of enforcement, followed by investigation of complaints, and now there are audits. Thanks for watching. We have more tutorials coming. Thanks in advance for your comments and suggestions.